Yeah, I would like to ask you that in the United Nations, what kind of a person would you prefer? A person with a well-formed mind or a person who is with a well-educated mind?
No, actually, the contrast that I drew in that speech you're quoting is between a well-filled mind and a well-formed mind. A well-formed mind is an educated mind. A well-filled mind is one that's full of facts. But as I also said in that speech, you can get facts with a click of the mouse these days. All you need is Google. You don't really need to have a mind stuffed full of facts. What you need is a mind that knows how to think. And that's what I meant by well-formed mind. A well-formed mind is one that deals with unfamiliar issues. All of you have probably been told by your teachers and parents to study hard for your examinations, to cram away and be ready to answer all the questions in the exam paper. But the fact is, the big examination called life doesn't actually ask you only the questions you could prepare for. So you need to have the kind of mind that can deal with unanticipated questions, problems that you were not earlier prepared for, understand them, find sensible approaches to dealing with them, solve them. That's the kind of mind we need, not just in the United Nations, but in the world and including in our country. So I put a well-formed mind ahead of a well-filled mind.
Okay. Could you please pass the mic forward?
Yes, go ahead.
Good
Whoever
evening.
has the mic can start speaking,
Okay.
and I'll find
Start
you.
speaking.
Good evening, sir. My question to you is, it's often been said by many people that the UN's biggest failure is the Rwandan genocide of 1994.
Right.
Would you agree with that? Why or why not?
Well, it depends on how you define the UN. This is the big challenge. The UN is both a stage and an actor. Right, so the UN as stage is a place where the member states all come, discuss, make decisions. The UN as actor is the Secretary General, his secretariat, his operations, his agencies, who go out and implement those decisions that have been made by member states. But there's often a confusion between the stage and the actor. And so the UN tends to get blamed for things that member states didn't have the desire to do or were not willing to contribute towards doing. And so the result, it's like sort of blaming the Old Trafford ground for the way the Indians played so badly in the test match last week. Okay. The UN as a forum cannot be blamed when member states. So in the case of not just Rwanda, but any operation, what happens is that you need three things. You need a viable mandate, one that can be fulfilled realistically. You need resources that are commensurate to that mandate. So you can't have a gigantically complicated task and too few troops or not enough money. And finally, and most important, you need political will. Political will can only come from governments. The United Nations has no political will of its own. It's a sum total of what member states agree. So that political will was absent in the case of Rwanda. There just weren't enough countries willing to take action, willing to take the risk, willing to put their own troops on the line to save lives in Rwanda. So if you want, you can say the United Nations failed, but I would truthfully say the world failed. Humanity failed to save these lives in Rwanda.
All right, can you pass the mic forward to this young lady right here, Toto?
So this may be a bit of a...
Where are you?
On your left.
Okay, hi.
This may be a bit of a controversial question, but would you agree that giving the veto power to certain countries in the Security Council more or less gives them complete control over the United Nations?
Well, you know, it's an interesting question. The history of the veto is that the League of Nations had no veto, and in a sense, everyone had a veto because there was no special membership. And what happened was when the powerful countries didn't like what was going on and didn't feel the organization did enough for them, they just quit. So if you look at the League of Nations history, the US never joined. The Germans were expelled. The Italians were kicked out after they invaded Abyssinia in 1935. The Russians were kicked out later, but by that time the Second World War had begun when they invaded Finland in 1941. So basically, what happened was that the League of Nations could not retain all the big powers in the world within it, and therefore it could not keep the peace around the world. So the challenge facing those who were creating the United Nations after the Second World War was, what incentive can we give the powerful countries so they will stay? Because if they walk out, the organization will collapse. And the incentive that was given to them was, look, we can ensure that nothing that is fundamentally against your vital interests will be done because you can stop it through a veto. And that's what kept both the US and the Soviet Union in the Security Council during the Cold War, because they both knew that ultimately they could protect their fundamental interests during any crisis through the use of the veto.